Talking with the experts.
Discover how to transform your leadership team with Margie Oleson's proven strategies for high performance and collaboration in episode 513.
The organization and all the people involved around the organization better, and they're feeling like it's confusing. But once they know that there really are some things that they can do, which we can forgive them for not knowing, because many don't. It's all in the execution. So you can read all these books, you can listen to podcasts, you can have trainings, but then it's all in the execution, and the execution relies on some capabilities that they don't have right now. Number one, they have to give it time. Number two, they have to invest in it. And so they have to take time away from the other things that they're doing. Number three, they really have to understand how we learn. We can't go into a classroom and talk about a case study and say, we're going to apply this to our work. No, we got to talk about work. So we always talk about work, but then we stay there and we see something through all the way through. That's how the brain starts to lean in and starts to develop new ways of thinking and new ways of acting. And if leaders thought it was possible, they would want to sign on.
Talking with the experts.
Welcome to Talking with the Experts, where we believe that success is a journey, and every journey is easier with help from friends. That's why we bring you top-notch experts and real business heroes eager to share their lessons from the road to success. We delve into new topics each week: effective marketing strategies, innovative problem solving, financial planning, and team building. We tackle everything you need to know to grow your business and keep it thriving. Whether you dream about launching your first startup or a business veteran looking to shake things up, we've got you covered. With each episode, you'll gain knowledge, boost your confidence, and be inspired to take action. So, grab a coffee, make yourself comfortable, and join our exciting journey. You're not alone in this. We're here, guiding you, cheering for you, and celebrating each milestone. Let's turn your business dreams into reality, starting today. Here is your host, Rose Davidson.
Hello everyone, welcome to Talking with the Experts. I'm your host, Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com. Talking with the Experts is all about business by business owners for business owners. You can find it on all good podcasting streaming platforms and on YouTube. Today, my guest is Margie Oleson. Now, Margie's going to be discussing with us how leaders and their leadership teams can finally learn that it's possible to be a cohesive, high-performing leadership team, benefiting the entire organisation. She has a program called Team Accelerator, and it introduces the science and art of leadership and team performance, applying the most important systems, processes, and habits to turn the old around into something that's new and will have immediate effect. It will shift from low-performing meetings to productive, engaging, high-performance meetings. It will reduce gossip and complaints. Oh my God, wouldn't we as leaders love to stop gossip and complaints? And it will replace this with trust and collaboration. It will also increase clarity and alignment to help leaders lead their own teams in the direction of the leader's goal and the current priorities of the organisation. Margie, thank you so much for joining me today. It's such a pleasure to meet you.
Thanks. Nice to meet you, Rose.
Yeah, so tell me, how did you come to be, how's your journey progressed to come to this point?
So our first leaders are the people that we were raised with. Our first teams is anybody in the household. If there's multiple people, that's a team. And then it's first jobs, it's school, it's groups that we're a part of. And then it's every leader that we have after that. And when I was growing up, I had a pretty strong sense that leadership had opportunities, that we were solving some of the same problems over and over again. And then I became an adult, joined corporate America. And after decades of challenges and frustrations, being laid off, being fired, I just kept thinking, well, I can do this better. I can try harder. I can be nicer. I can try to be a better person on the team. I can lead my team, but help my leader. And I finally realized that what was happening in organizations, first of all, because of those layoffs and firings, I had an opportunity to go to a lot of organizations, and they're very similar in their challenges. And so I went back to school, earned my doctorate in organization development, and I sat in 4 years of coursework and saw that we've known everything we need to know. At that point, it was for 30 years. It's now 40 years. Those books that you can get, podcasts, experts that you can listen to, they're basically saying some of what they're talking about is based on some of the same principles. And I was thinking, what is happening? Why are organizations continuing to struggle when we know what we need to know? So my dissertation was, what is happening here? How can we figure out why leaders and their teams struggle? And that was the journey I was on. And once I learned very clearly what might be happening, I set out to help that and go out on my own, so that I don't get laid off or fired. And I can bring to organizations and leaders and teams what I've learned, both the art and the science, and help them, which I've been able to do client by client. And it feels really good for them. And they develop new ways and would not ever want to go back to the old ways.
Yeah, it's one good thing about being an entrepreneur. You can actually fire yourself.
Amen.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting, and you're right. Family dynamics are a team. Friendship groups are a team. So, how you interact within those teams is really important. And to get the mix right and to get the dynamics right is something that we should all be striving for.
Mm-hmm. And I learned about the brain. And so when we're talking about the art and the science, we have to think about how the brain learns and how it remembers and how it is a part of the process of behaving. And 99.9% of everything we do every day is familiar and autopilot. And these are our habits. And what happens is leaders don't even realize that because they've not had a high-performing leader or been on a high-performing team, they're operating on their autopilot that they learned along the way from other people who are also operating on their own autopilot. So when someone has a chance to learn the information based on a way that they actually can take it in, compare it to what they already know, and turn it into habits, which is where the coaching comes in and the practice. So they're learning, but then they're practicing being observed. They can actually start to see differences. And then they have an opportunity then to step back, and where there are stubborn challenges, they can go deeper and work on those, because maybe there's something about the culture of the organization or something about the market that they're in. So much of what a leader is doing is just automatic. And yet we want to hold them accountable for behavior that they don't even realize where it came from or how they can change it.
Yeah. So how do we go about getting leaders to get off autopilot and learn new skills? Because a lot of people say, I've been doing this for years and years and it seemed, it's worked. But, in a lot of organization, it's not working, and no one's ready to step up and say, this isn't working. Can we do something different? So how can we, educate leaders to do better?
The first thing we can do is let them know you're all in the same boat. There are so many leaders telling me the same story, no matter which industry I'm in, no matter which size organization, whether they're entrepreneurs or they have 150,000 global employees. They're saying the same things because they're seeing the same pain. And they think that it's just how things are. And when you start there, you already have abandoned any possibility for feeling like you could do something different. The other thing is leaders, especially if they have had this as their experience, think that they're supposed to outsource it. So they'll turn it over to HR, or they'll bring in a consultant and they'll say, do a training. Train our leaders how to be better leaders. Well, then they bring in a case study and they talk about theoretical things and they apply a model, but they're not doing the actual work. And then the trainer goes away. And then really quickly, everyone goes back to the old ways because, again, their habits kick in. What leaders don't realize is there are indicators that they have right now today that can tell them if what they're doing is working. Number one, if their meetings aren't going well, if people don't want to go to their meetings, if their meetings continue to have the same issues over and over again, if the team and the organization continues to have the same issues over and over again, they are doing it in a way that is not helpful. If they are struggling and they think it's the market, It's the economy. It's the weird world that we're in right now. It is the workforce challenges. It is supply chain woes. If they really think that we have these unsolvable problems, then they say, well, then why would I even venture out and try? Because I've done all of this and it doesn't work. Once they have a few wins. And so my work is Top Team Accelerator, and it's a 1-year program, but people don't sign on to it for the 1 year. We start with just a few months of executive coaching and starting with the team so that we can understand if it's a fit, because they can't buy this. They can't buy these changes. They can buy the knowledge and the facilitation and the observations and the practice. But they have to do it themselves. And leaders, unfortunately, do not talk about this openly with each other. It's not, I don't get promoted several times and then I want to sit around and talk about how vulnerable I feel or how ill-prepared I feel. But the truth is, if they really could talk openly with each other, they would hear that they have some similar issues. So if your leadership team has people that are rowing in has their team rowing in their own direction, or they're coming to you to solve their problems, or there's gossip and complaints, if you have a leadership team where people are gossiping about each other behind the scenes, that is the kind of behavior that absolutely has to stop today. And these are the things then. So once we figure out if you have the right structure for your team and the right size, so some leadership teams have 20 people. That's not a leadership team. They're on there because everybody wants to be included. People don't want to miss out, or this particular role has a history of being on the leadership team, so we have to keep it that way. Well, you've got 20 people, which means you're really leading in the background with a few people. That's not the way to build trust and collaboration. So once we get the right structure, we immediately fix your meetings and we start to get all the teams rowing in the same direction, people start to see what's really different. And then if you know James Clear on habits, atomic habits, we've heard the phrase that culture eats strategy for breakfast. It doesn't matter how great your strategy is. If your organization is not going to be able to execute on it, then all the greatest strategies in the world won't help. I would say your habits are eating your strategy for breakfast. So you've got all these great ideas. You've hired the best experts. You are feeling really good about your own background and the group that you've assembled. And then you now are a product of the collective of all those individual experiences and habits. Once you get those habits to be more shared and talked about out loud, that's where you can change it. And you'll hire someone who went to law school because you would not guess on the legal. You'll hire someone who's a CPA or has a strong background in finance and MBA because you are not going to guess on the financials. And all these leaders are being left to their own devices to guess on leadership. And I would say the piece that's missing is we're not comfortable at work talking about behaviors, but the behaviors are where leadership is showing up. It's either working or it isn't. So one of the things we change and we get really good at and comfortable at with boundaries and respect and grace is talking with each other about behavior.
Yeah, it's really important to have conversations about what's happening within the dynamics of the team because, and you're right about gossiping and complaints. That is the worst kind of culture to have in any organization, whether it be the leaders or whether it be the at the coalface. Those sorts of behaviors really need to stop because, it doesn't promote for a happy workplace at all. And many times when there's gossip and complaining, sometimes it's really just a defense or a survival mechanism. Someone's just trying to survive when if you give them something that's an alternative and you start to develop some habits around it and you start to have some wins, it feels really good. People start to get engaged and want to come to work and want to be a part of that leadership team. And all of those benefits that you create within that team start to be cascaded to your own teams and it starts to move out into the organization. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really important for leaders to, be the guiding light, I guess, of the organization.
That's right.
And you can have leaders, and then you can have people like that are, I guess, semi-leaders under that, like they're two ICs, under them. But you've got to still have that collaboration. You've still got to have cohesion.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. And leaders want to know how to do this. They may not know that it's possible. And so they may not be trying to figure that out. But if they learn that there really was a possibility to turn around their meetings, to turn around the feeling of being a preschool teacher. I'm just corralling these people that are coming to me. This is not why they wanted to be a leader. They thought it was going to feel different. They thought it was going to feel better. They wanted to make the organization and all the people involved around the organization better. And they're feeling like it's confusing. But once they know that there really are some things that they can do, which we can forgive them for not knowing, because many don't. It's all in the execution. So you can read all these books, you can listen to podcasts, you can have trainings, but then it's all in the execution, and the execution relies on some capabilities that they don't have right now. Number one, they have to give it time. Number two, they have to invest in it. And so they have to take time away from the other things that they're doing. Number three, they really have to understand how we learn. We can't go into a classroom and talk about a case study and say, we're going to apply this to our work. No, we got to talk about work. So we always talk about work, but then we stay there and we see something through all the way through. That's how the brain starts to lean in and starts to develop new ways of thinking and new ways of acting. And if leaders thought it was possible, they would want to sign on. The other thing is they don't have to be a certain kind of leader. We know that there are all different kinds of leaders. More extroverted, more introverted, charismatic, more behind the scenes, somebody who's a scientist, somebody who came out of education. There are all kinds of ways to be a leader. If you follow the principles in the program, you end up building your program. So in Top Team Accelerator, we have 4 pillars, and they're methodical. And they're in sequence. And it starts with teamwork. So the first thing you do is pause on all of the teamwork behaviors that you've been dealing with. You don't even have to get to root cause. You don't even have to investigate or research. I wonder why we are this way. You start doing things differently, start developing new habits, and all of a sudden things can start to feel smoother. And then you can dedicate some time to things that need a little bit more attention. Once you've got the team flowing in that, working more as a cohesive, high-performing group, now you get everybody flowing in the same direction. And it was Lencioni who said years ago, and it's still current, if you can get everybody in the organization rowing in the same direction as your goals and priorities, you will win in your industry against everybody. And he can say that because he's met thousands of leaders and teams, and most of them aren't doing this. They're all fragmented. They're in silos. Innocently, they think that's how organizations are. Organizations have silos. They do, which is why we get the top team to do what it needs to do to be cohesive and then have it cascade down. So once you create that alignment in that pillar, then you set up your operations for today, and you make sure that your governance and your roles and all the people involved have clarity around that direction that everybody's going in. And you fix your operations to make sure that they are relevant and that you're not all spread out. Everybody is on the same team watching the same metrics. And then we get to the final pillar, which is now we really engage in practice, and we're looking at the very few metrics that each one of us knows, remembers, can recite, can talk to our own teams, and the metrics include behaviors. So pretty soon, very early on in the process, each of the leadership team members can speak for the others, can talk about what their teams are working on, can talk about what their agenda is, can talk about how their team fits into the overall. Right now, people might feel like there's competition, some politics, some confusion. We're both working on the same thing. Why are we doing that? Well, I didn't know you were doing that. That is, you don't have to have that. You're not that big when you're a team. You can have much more clarity and alignment. And once they start to do that and build those systems and put those processes in place that are the right ones, and then skip the processes that are the wrong ones, you will be a different company. You absolutely are a different organization without having to completely go out of business for a year or stop everything. You are turning it around while you're doing your day-to-day and investing time enough away with help so that you can make it happen together.
Yeah. And that is, it's being, collaborating, being together, being on the same page, sharing your expertise with everybody, not just a select few, making sure that you're conversing with the people that are in the team, not just talking to the top tiers of business. So yeah, it's a work in progress. It's working together. And, if someone's not towing the line, so to speak, you really need to find out why they're not doing it, and, whether they want to be part of the team or they don't. Because in a team, there's always somebody who, doesn't like change, doesn't like, and then, they cause disruption amongst the team. So you need to, work out who that person is, why they are. And if they're not a good fit, then, move them.
And one thing that happens pretty quickly is, first of all, the leader begins to be able to hold people accountable because they've got clarity and people are concrete about what is expected of them and what we should be working on. It's hard to hold people accountable when everybody's kind of confused. But when you have created clarity, it's a lot more concrete. Then you can hold people accountable to the things that you said. Also, your meetings are so much more effective. And so the meetings then focus on those things that that need to be discussed with the right people. And then you always clarify, what did we say today? What did we decide? And then when you come back next time, you start there. Meetings are so ineffective, and that's making it bad for everything across the company. But once a leader feels like they can start to hold people accountable, those leadership team members learn how to hold each other accountable in a respectful, collegial way that puts the client or the product, the customer first. They put them in the center. And once you do that and you have confidence that you know how to do that, you can start to hold each other accountable in a friendly, respectful, professional way. The one thing I do find is sometimes what looks like the problem person or persons, maybe somebody's on a performance improvement plan. Maybe the leader is saying, I'm trying to figure out a way to move them up and out. Those people, once there's clarity, once everyone is aligned, all of a sudden those people lean in and can become your star performers. They've just been waiting or confused or struggling. The other thing is, on your teams right now, you usually have people who are good at this. So they're natural at what we're talking about. They're not in power, or the system is firmly established and the power is moving in a different direction. So they sit back. It's a really high cost, the turnover that happens when you're not a high performing leadership team. You're not able to lead as a high performing leader. So the people that are really talented, they go somewhere else. They're looking for that performance in other organizations. And we know the cost of what it can be compared to keeping someone and having them be great, to have to replace them with the risk of who the unknown is. When you have talent who want to be a part of it, you are saving costs and you're also increasing all kinds of positive metrics. I worked with a client, a medical device company, who had been together for a year, a global team, and they were gaining no traction. So they brought me in to focus on traction. And I'll tell you, we don't focus on trust. We don't focus on traction. We don't focus on developing collaboration. We put the systems and the processes and the building blocks in place in a sequence that is logical so that those things come by naturally. And when we get to a certain point and trust would have been developed and it's not, then we go after it and try to look. Well, this team was not gaining traction, and there was just a lot of blame and a lot of panic, and hundreds of thousands of dollars were being spent that so far there wasn't any return. And when we got together and I brought them together and we developed some of these principles, it was as if that something magic had just been implemented. And all of a sudden they turned it around in a few days, and all of a sudden they were off to the races. And the other thing that happened is people on their teams were asking to leave the initiative, this wonderful global initiative where they were wanting the best and the brightest to be working on it. And after the best and brightest did that for a while, they're thinking, can I please come off of this highly difficult, challenging, dysfunctional team? Once they pulled their act together and really got together and were cohesive and were leading and were feeling better about it, their team members felt better about being on the team. So it can grow, and you can be surprised by who steps up once you give them an opportunity, because you've given them the resources and the tools, the boundaries, the structure, and you give them feedback and you support them.
Yeah, it's really important to, as you said, to make sure that everyone's involved, everyone's on the same page, everyone's aligned with the missions and visions and goals of the organization.
Correct.
What happens for people that are thrust into a leadership role that they're not prepared for?
So I would say that this process works for a leader in every possible iteration of where they might be. Maybe they are a longstanding leader and they've been doing this for 40 years and they don't understand why we would have to do something different unless we talk about what their pains are and how we could make it better. All the way to a leader who is brand new and has not had leadership experience. And then the leader you're talking about, who is maybe because there's a crisis, or maybe because somebody has exited, or maybe something happened that's a great opportunity and now something needs to happen really quickly. One of the great benefits of the having this system in place is you become really, really fast. Imagine how fast you are when you're speaking the same language. And I'm not talking lingo. I'm talking, I worked with a team, a very small leadership team who had been together for a year and they were not gaining traction. And they brought me in. And one of the first meetings they had, each of these 4 people told a different story about what they were supposed to be doing. And it had been a year of people who liked each other. They liked working together. They spent a lot of time together. They were loving this transformation. And they just kept thinking, oh, this must be this leader, or it must be this thing in the market, or, this is a really big change for our company. Maybe we should slow it down. When in reality, when we just gave them a microphone and said, hey, what's changing? All 4 had a different story. Imagine how much faster and more efficient and more effective you are when you're speaking the same words. You're taking your team to the same goal. You are working on the priorities of the leader, and the leader doesn't have to then spend the time catching everybody up to who they are, catching everybody up to what they should be working on, because it all happens at the same time. And so it's like an intervention. It's a revolution and an intervention, but it doesn't have to feel so panic-stricken or disruptive in a way that is really, really difficult. It is all very, it can feel organic and natural, because nothing that we do in this program is jingoistic or cutesy, or we don't work on strategy. That's not what I do. Somebody else does that. We don't work on your finances. My team doesn't do that. Somebody else does that. The things we do are because we're experts in behavior, psychology, organizational dynamics, leadership. And usually if you have a professional in, they may have one of those, or they may have all that, but nobody's giving them permission to talk openly about behavior. So if I'm a leader and I am thrust into a role, you can literally pick up this program and follow it to the letter, and then we'll customize it based on what you're dealing with. This would be the playbook for how to set up and very quickly bring the people along with you, or figure out who's not going to be able to come along. And that's a win-win for everybody once you know what that is.
Absolutely. So, Margie, where can people find the Top 10 Accelerator if they want to take advantage of it?
So my website is olsonconsulting.com. Olson has a silent E, it's extra, OLESON-consulting.com. And there you can download a case study and learn more about how it's been implemented, but you can also watch videos and see articles and learn some things about what you can do literally today to help your team without having to wait to do a program. You can make changes right away today. I'm also Margie.Oleson, OLESON, on LinkedIn. I post content every day to help you and your team.
Wonderful. Margie, thank you so much for sharing all that great knowledge with us today. It's been an absolute eye-opener for me and how I can be a better leader.
Wonderful.
And yeah, I might try those strategies on the person that leads me.
Amen. Thank you, Rose.
And you have a lovely evening.
You as well. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Talking with the Experts, hosted by Rose Davidson. Make sure you have a look at our back catalogue over at talkingwiththeexperts.com. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on any episode. We look forward to your company next time. Talking with the Experts.